Jim, thanks so much for participating in this event. Can you give us a quick 30-second summary of the key message that you were trying to impart to the audience that you think it's important for them to take away?
I think I have two key messages in the presentation that I gave. The first was about suggesting some actions for everyone, some actionable technical principles is what I called them, and there were three that were in there. If you're going to deploy DNSSEC, the three things that you need to care about. One is making sure that you can import and export your public key information, and that applies at all levels of the domain system, registry, registrar, DNS operator, as well as enterprises or registrants to do it themselves. The second one would be ensuring that you can unsign your zone. This is important when it comes to doing transfers, being able to move between registrars, especially if you want to move from a DNSSEC-enabled registrar to one that is not. And the third point was ensuring that you separate your registration services from your DNS operation services. This is very important because when you're trying to do transfers, you need to be able to move your DNS operation separate from moving your registration operation. And there are several details in there that one needs to be concerned about. But let me instead move on to the second major point that I wanted to make in my presentation. DNSSEC has a very long history, more than 18 years of development from when it was first created. In its early days, it was created for the specific purpose of addressing man-in-the-middle or cache poisoning attacks. And I think that we need to reposition DNSSEC today. The internet is a very different world than it was in the early 90s when we first started creating DNSSEC. The internet was not at all what it is today. In the mid-90s, early 1995 and moving on is when the web first came into existence and really came into creating the internet that we know today. I think DNSSEC is an enabling technology. It's very much the cornerstone foundation of a safe and secure internet, of the next generation internet to come. It's the basis for things that we can't even think of yet today. Virtually everything we do on the internet depends on the DNS, and so protecting that critical infrastructure with DNSSEC is an essential component of what we're to become and where we're going to go. DNSSEC is an evolutionary step for the internet in the same way that the web was in the mid-90s.
So what initiatives do you think should be pursued as a priority in helping deploy DNSSEC?
I think we have to continue to build out the critical infrastructure overall. There are several players in the DNSSEC infrastructure. We've been focusing a lot of attention on registries and registrars, thus making DNSSEC available to registrants, to people who own domain names, to people who want to sign the domain names. But there are two other players which have not gotten as much attention and really need much more attention, and those would be your DNS operators, the people who are going to be serving up your DNSSEC-enabled zones, and then the validators. So the ISPs of the world is the way we're going to get the biggest bang for the buck in the deployment of DNSSEC. The second thing after those two would be getting your services and application service providers to integrate DNSSEC directly in what they're doing. In this case, we're talking about browsers, and email clients are the obvious things. They're the most obvious applications people know about on the internet. But of course, there'll be many other things to come that can make use of DNSSEC, and those will be important too.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Simon, thank you for participating in this event. Can you summarize in 30 seconds or so the key message you were trying to get across to the audience that you think is important for them to take away?
Sure, yeah, well, the key message from my presentation was really about where we were in the UK in terms of our DNSSEC deployment, but also some of the tools on offer for other people to use in terms of cutting the cost of deploying DNSSEC, and really giving people an awareness of how Nominet, through its public purpose, is trying to push forward DNSSEC as something that's vital for the security and stability of the internet.
Great, and what initiatives do you think should be pursued as a priority to help deploy DNSSEC?
I think as a priority, firstly, it's about awareness. It's about making sure everybody understands the importance of DNSSEC. It's about making sure that people are aware of the tools and the things that are available to them so that they can look at the variety of options that are open to them. And finally, I think it's vital that we create a movement and a real push throughout the internet community that we're doing the right thing and making the internet more secure.
Great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Olaf, thanks so much for participating. It was a valuable contribution you made. Can you summarize in about 30 seconds or so the key message you want to impart to the audience?
There's one single message, and it's very short. I don't need 30 seconds. It's innovation. Now, the explanation about innovation is that with DNSSEC, we build a framework by which we maintain and actually increase trust in one of the fundamental pieces of the internet architecture. And by improving the trust in that piece of the architecture, the domain name system, we can actually build new applications, conceive of new services, and evolve the internet to a next level.
What initiatives do you think should be pursued as a priority to help deploy DNSSEC?
It's a difficult question. I think that people need to take their own responsibilities in terms of looking at their organization and not immediately thinking about profit, but think about long-term gain of a more public interest. And if you really want to think in cost-benefit, thinking lost opportunity costs. But people need to take their own responsibilities. Internet is a hugely decentralized entity. There are many players in this field. Some of them are more enthusiastic, more driven in providing solutions or providing parts of solutions. But many people need to take their own responsibility, if only turning on their software features that might already exist, or actually invest in training of personnel and staff, depending on the kind of operation you run.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.